I don't think I can think of specific words that feel accurate towards describing this chapter. Phenomenal, outstanding, breathtaking, heart-stopping, speechless. I feel like those words don't do it enough justice. There were so many things that were laid out so beautifully and in such coherent order to ease you into the finale of this chapter. Everything flowed with so much sense behind it, with so much direction, so much context and pre-context, building you slowly and slowly over this period of 40 odd pages to finally get to a point that we have been waiting for since the longest of times. The realization of Eren's goal, speaking it into existence, the impact on it, the face that he makes, the depiction of his character, his words, everything that he's kind of been building up towards is completely holstered and used within this chapter in more ways than one. The idea of freedom throughout Attack on Titan, throughout Eren's perspective and journey with finding it, has been convoluted with so many different ideologies, so many people thinking they are right and thinking that the others are wrong, so much manipulation, so many things that warp and misconstruct that meaning of freedom. Eren has been on this track for quite a bit of time. We as readers have been experiencing his journey over so many years, but finally we have seen the face of a person that is desperate, that now has the power to take his desperate measures and to show the world what he truly is capable of. That all the struggles that he has gone through, all the misdirection, manipulation and warping of himself and people around him has led him down this path. Eren Jaeger has changed so tremendously well as a character. His evolution is ridiculous, and this chapter somewhat revisits those stepping stones to reveal to us the final face of Eren and what he's striving for. To give the finale of the chapter so much weight and make it hit extremely hard, the first half of this chapter is surrounded in normality. It's very simple and easygoing with a lingering idea of hope entwined in between, but it does a tremendous job in kind of evaluating Eren's desperation, his emotions, and showcasing them to us as readers in such simplistic manners. His interaction between his friends, towards the people that are being treated poorly, his facial expressions, how much he cares, his thought process, the amount that he actually acknowledges other people in his point of view, in his sight. It's very difficult for us to kind of witness that. As this point in time, before the Malian invasion arc, was when Eren was kind of in his final stages, making his final choices, and he would push forward to become a completely different character, taking a direction and a stand and an ideology that over all of these periods of time, with Eldian and Mali and the rest of the world even, no one has dared to try and go down. There is a lot of bittersweet moments within here, just seeing Eren and his friends in a completely unknown place, outside of the walls, seeing so many new and interesting things. Seeing Armin and Mikasa and everyone else interacting with these new objects and new food and different smell and things to see. There's so many different things that they're experiencing all at once. It's such a joyous feeling, but we glance back to Eren ever so slightly and you can see the shroud of mystery there. You can see that at that point in time, Eren was pretty much letting everything go. That this normality, this happiness wouldn't be possible for his friends or anyone back on Paradise if he wasn't going to go down the direction that he chose. That pretty much it was up to him to push forward and to potentially strive for something like this. There's a lot of beautiful moments within the opening half of the chapter. There's a lot of saddening, pretty gruesome moments on top of it, with a child that is a pickpocketer being surrounded by Malians. Without the help of Levi, would have been hung up in the streets or thrown into the water or anything in between, you name it. A sickening display of someone that's potentially not even subjects of Ymir, but just because he pickpocketed Levi to begin with, the showcase of the Malian mentality and what they've known over so many years, the hatred towards Eldians is so instilled into them that even people that aren't potentially Malian will still get the similar treatment to Eldians. That's how spooked they are. That's how ingrained into their blood, into their mentality it is. And it's obviously thanks to something being so outdated, the teachings, the manipulation, the warping of their mind since they were children. It's dangerous, it's vicious, it's malicious. The child managed to escape thanks to Levi and his quick thinking. The Malians obviously were extremely upset with it, but they managed to get away. Considering this is all somewhat from the perspective of Mikasa, we actually get some sort of tender romance moment between the two. something that Mikasa reflects on pretty heavily, and it's a side of her that we really haven't seen in quite a bit of time, let alone at all in such detail. Her compassion and admiration towards Eren was kind of thrown up in the air at this moment when he faced her pretty directly. He was very vague about his questions, but she still obviously felt that connection with him, and him vice versa. I think something as simple as this, the connection between the two, was well and truly needed for the context of the remaining half of the chapter, to build that humanity for Eren, that this is what it could have been, and this is what it potentially should have been. As much as Mikasa and potentially even Eren may have wanted this, there wasn't that possibility there. And Mikasa even reflects on that herself. If she answered differently, if she went things about in a different manner, maybe things would have been different. Maybe the outcome would have changed. Obviously regret with sorrow, everything in between with what Eren is doing now is completely far from that. There's also a really important segment in here that we've been waiting for a very long time, and that is the peace treaty. I think a lot of us have been talking about the idea of peace for quite a bit of time. It's a pretty general concept that you think one would approach before going to all-out war. Funny enough, they actually did. They tried it. They pretty much planned for a United Nations meeting. Basically, you would have all the nations across the globe in a massive conference room, and they would talk about the concept of paradise and Eldians specifically and what they should do with them. The whole prospect of them being there was to go to a specific bloodline, which was the Ackermans, which go by a different name outside of paradise, obviously. And she was going to try her best to push forward in painting the Eldians and the people within paradise in a better light, trying to free them using a peace treaty. Now, normally this would work, but because of the hatred that has been surrounding Eldians for a very long time, because of the history between them, and because of the anomaly of Titan shifting abilities and the viciousness and power behind it, this did not go well. The peace treaty was an absolute mess. If anything, it kind of reconfirmed the hatred towards Eldians and the subjects of Ymir. This peace treaty in itself was something short of a final choice. If this did not work, then there would be no other options for Eren to try and talk to people. That politics and negotiations wouldn't be a possibility. If they couldn't have a meeting with all the nations across the globe and settle down with a peace treaty, nothing else would work in a similar fashion. This is why directly after that, Eren disappears from this. When the outcome's kind of set in stone, he vanishes, and that is when we're reintroduced into Eren in terms of the Mali invasion arc, where he disappears for quite a bit of time and pushes forward with supposedly quote-unquote Zeke's plan. No one was in contact with him for quite a bit of time. He pretty much went rogue. This is when the misconception for a lot of his friends, Mikasa and Armin and everyone else, thought that Eren was pursuing the ideology of Zeke, obviously euthanizing the people on Paradise, which is something that he's never wanted this entire time. If anything, he was gaining assets and to push forward in a completely different direction. He has so many different memories, potentially memories of his future self, because he has memories from his father. He has all the power within his hands, and he knows what the outcome is potentially going to be. That's why the bittersweet and melancholy moments within the beginning half of the chapter seem so prominent with Eren, because he already knows the outcome for this. That raveling and enjoying the normality of these happy moments is completely pointless, because he knows what's coming. However, there is one moment that he sets off. Prior to him actually vanishing and prior to the peace treaty, there is a moment where he actually gets drunk with everyone and enjoys himself. It's kind of like a good send-off for Eren's previous self, that no longer will he able to enjoy himself like this with his friends. And they generally have a good time. As much as they are in enemy territory, as much as Eren is extremely wanted, they enjoy themselves. They have fun. I think it was a really good send-off for not only Mikasa and the connection they had right before that, but also with everyone in between, just having a blast. And it's something that we really haven't seen for the longest of times, pretty much since the beginning of the story. With all of these ups and downs, we get to the end half of the chapter, which is pretty much a visual spectacle, something that is a feast for your eyes, for your soul, for your heart, for everything. The panel work, the layout for them, the art, everything is so specific, it's crisp, it's very detailed and laid out very precisely. Everything is just beautiful. It's gorgeous, but also has this overwhelming tone to it. I don't know how Isayama does it, but there is a situation where Mikasa and Armin are starting to shift into the other realm, Ymir's realm specifically. And while the rumbling is going on and all of these wall titans are starting to break free, it's almost like you can hear that rumbling in the back of your head, like you're in there with them, like you yourself as a reader are experiencing the rumbling. Everything's just crazily loud and obnoxious, and it's so hard to hear what people are saying to one another. Armin catches on to the fact that Eren is activating way more Titans than there needs to be, which obviously leads him to the revelation that Eren is not going with Zeke's plan, and that he's going to annihilate either Mali or the rest of the world. However, in the background we have what seemingly is a completely different design of a Titan than we've ever seen before, something completely abnormal. The size of Eren's specifically new Titan at this point is absurd. I've seen a lot of people range the estimated heights from anywhere to 200 to 1,000 meters. It's very difficult to tell as he's kind of hunched over, but his legs and his pelvis pretty much a similar height to the colossal Titans, the wall Titans, which are 100 meters tall obviously. What's the longest part of him is the spinal cord coming at the back in the rib cage, which is kind of inverted. On the spinal side, they're kind of protruded out like spikes. It's kind of similar to a dinosaur, if you will. I'm very curious to see what type of design this actually is, what Titan this is meant to be. It's extremely terrifying, but it has this goofy concept to it because his legs are extremely small for the amount of rib cage and spine that he has. So I don't know if he's going to get rid of those legs or if it's going to morph differently or if he's kneeling down or something. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm very excited to see what his Titan design actually is, because it's going to be absolutely huge. The biggest impact of this chapter, however, is funny enough not the rumbling and all of the wall Titans breaking free and converging on Eren at this point. It's Eren Jaeger's declaration, something that we have been waiting for him to say for the longest of times. But he does this in such a grand fashion. He doesn't just let a couple of people know, he lets all subjects of Ymir know. He brings every single subject of Ymir into Ymir's place, meaning that everyone, in some sort of spiritual sense, can see and even hear Eren within this place that is not restricted by time. We have Zeke in there lumped over in the back, just laying face down. Mikasa and Armin are in there. Everyone is in there. There is thousands of people within that place, all listening to Eren declare destruction on Earth. That he is going to use his newfound abilities to set everyone free, that everything outside of the walls is going to be absolutely obliterated, that he will push forward and destroy all of the enemies across the globe, because he was left with no other choice. He has pushed so extremely hard to find so many different answers throughout the entirety of the story, but the fact that this is some sort of his final goal, his final chance, is saddening. As much as he is playing this martyr, he's playing this role of the big bad wolf, all he wants is his people to be free, and he is going to go extremely far to get it. Eren does not want this wholeheartedly. He's not an evil person in that nature, but he knows that he is the only person that can do this, that over thousands of years, that he is the only person to be able to manifest this type of power. It's thanks to his kind of connection with Ymir Fritz specifically, and how I think personally he's replaced her, that she no longer is kind of bound or restricted by the king's ideology or anything in between. She's free from that, and Eren will finally push forward with this plan. The real question is, how does this end for him? Does he die by the end of this story? Because by each chapter that comes along, it's becoming more and more difficult for me to recognize Eren living by the end of the story. The sacrifice and the build up towards it is very high at the moment, and it's not necessarily because the world's going to hate him, but I think the place that he resides in is something that he won't be able to get out from, or something that he can't just escape on his own will. He may have a physical body within the real world, but he may still be stuck spiritually in Ymir's place. I don't know if he can fully leave that place now that he has the founding Titan to such an extent. But then again, is this where the alternative ending comes into play? It feels weird to think about the story ending with literally the whole world being destroyed by Eren. Surely there is something else here, right? Surely there is something that's going to either stop Eren or at least stop the amount of destruction that he's causing. Is that going to be Armin, humanity's savior? Is Armin going to figure out something that's going to kind of twist everything on its head and kind of reel in the destructive value of what Eren's doing at the moment? And that could be in the form of channeling the idea that Zeke had, but in a different direction. Euthanizing the subjects of Ymir so they can't give birth to children is an extremely powerful thing. In a similar direction, couldn't you also take away the Titan shifting abilities away from the subjects of Ymir? Couldn't you make it so that they could flee across the globe and never be recognized ever again because their blood is inherently different? They specifically point out within this chapter that everywhere across the globe is doing blood tests to find subjects of Ymir and subjugate them. But imagine how easy it would be for everyone to kind of escape and disappear into such a massive world if in some way, shape or form Eren could change the subjects of Ymir's blood so that the Titan shifting ability was no longer a thing, that the Titan serum was no longer effective, and even recognizing and doing the blood test on the subjects of Ymir was pointless, pretty much obliterating any essence of what the Eldians were by blood. It may seem somewhat impossible, it is extremely far-fetched, but so is euthanizing an entire race. Where did that idea even come from Zeke? He had some sort of concrete idea for it, like it was a possibility. I'm assuming it well and truly had to be possible, so surely there's another way for it. We've seen Ymir herself specifically create Titans out of thin air. She is beyond being a god at this point. She controls a lot of different things, and if Eren himself has replaced her, potentially he is entitled to those abilities. He may just not know about the idea of potentially changing everyone's bloodline, but then again, that doesn't actually stop the subjugation for them. That doesn't change the racism and the history between them, between Malian Eldians. So you have to somewhat meet in the middle. I think you'd have to oblige a peace treaty if you couldn't even tell an Eldian from a Malian with a blood test. But then on top of that, the amount of destruction that Eren could and can cause may obliterate the biggest factors for it. If Mali and some other big nations were completely obliterated off the face of the earth, but halfway through the subjects of Ymir basically vanish, it'd almost be impossible to find them. The land bridge that Eren could cause by walking the Titans across the ocean goes back to the Norse mythology stuff. He's setting everyone free, but then again, it also comes at a massive cost, and I don't think Eren himself is going to be free in a physical world, but he may be free in Ymir's place, not bound by any ideologies or rules or restrictions, just there by himself, with Grisha and the other Ymir kind of recognizing Ymir's place as freedom. At this point, I'm excited to see what Eren is going to actually achieve. How much destruction will he manage to get out onto the world? And if the entire globe is really going to be destroyed? That final panel just ended everything off perfectly. Everything that Eren has been building up towards, all of the emotions, all of the hardships, all of the desperate and tiring acts of wanting freedom for his people, has all cultivated into that final panel of him. His aggression, his anger, his emotion, everything is coming out, and he is a force to be reckoned with. People will finally see the true power of Titans, and at what cost? Death and destruction, unfortunately. But we'll see how far that actually goes. So with that being said, that is basically it. Let me know how you guys felt about the chapter. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. But I'm actually going to end the video off here. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.